Hello and welcome to my channel if this is the first video of mine that you are watching, but if it is not, welcome back. Today I'm going to be talking through the best books that I read during the second quarter of 2025, and all of these books were on my spring MBR. So I'm really excited. I read some great books. I only have one 5-star book on this list of the best books of Q2, but I do have a lot of strong 4-star reads. So no cocktail today. I do have a very massive cup of coffee to keep me going, and let's dive right into the books. So with my MBR update, as well as reading vlogs and book reviews throughout the last 3 months, I have already spoken about a few of these books, but I am going to go through them chronologically. So winding the clock back to April, the first best book of Q2 for me is going to be Apprentice to the Villain by Nicole Maehrer, which did feature in a reading vlog as well as that MBR update. And I think this one resonated so strongly with me because I was pleasantly surprised by it, which is something that I go on and on about all the time. But this book here took this series in a direction that I'm really excited for. There was an obvious path that the author could have taken with these characters and with this world, but this book featured a little bit more character exploration, a little bit more world development, and that's what I was really looking for when I picked up this book, but I wasn't sure if I was going to get it. I believe I have described this as enemies to lovers in the past, but our main characters aren't really enemies. I would say this is more co-workers to perhaps lovers, because that hasn't actually come to fruition yet. This is very much a slow burn. This past quarter has been a quarter of slow burns, I would say. But this is a romantic fantasy. It's very outrageous. It's very lighthearted, even though there are some real threats and a little bit of blood on the page. Even though this does follow a villain type character, the first book promised there was going to be heads swinging from the rafters. And while that is true, this book is not nearly as gruesome as I imagined it to be with that description. It's still quite lighthearted. It's still quite fun. There's a character that's a frog, Kingsley, who I absolutely adore, but it took me a little bit to warm up to him because I had to just suspend my disbelief to fully fall into the pages of this book. This is the second book in the series. The third book is coming out in August, and I don't know when I will be picking it up, but I absolutely will be picking it up, just because, like I said, the direction that the author took this series in at the very end definitely has me intrigued and eager for more. The next book that I picked up in April that quickly became a new favorite is Slightly Married by Mary Balogh, and I did get this book out from the library. It's the first in a series, the Bedouin Saga, which is the historical romance series, and I think Slightly Married was my favorite book from this whole series because I have read all 7 books of the Bedouin Saga now. But I did really enjoy Aidan and Eve's love story from Slightly Married. I gave this book 4 stars, I believe, and you might be able to discern with its title that this follows a marriage of convenience trope. And we have in Eve, our female protagonist, the bleeding heart type character who very much wants to make the world a better place. And she does so by making the world around her a better place and bringing as many people and animals under her wing as possible. Then in Aidan, our male protagonist, we have that stoic soldier type character. He has been off fighting in the Napoleonic Wars, has returned to English soil, and has made a promise to wed Eve so that she can keep her land and her house. And I really enjoyed watching their relationship develop and flourish as well as I really enjoyed this introduction to the Bedouin family. The Bedouin siblings are loud and boisterous, and I really enjoyed watching their dynamic and their individual characters shine through each subsequent book, which follows a different sibling. So I'm really glad that I finally picked up a Balogh novel, and I will be looking into more series by her for sure. Then moving along into May, I read Tower of Thorns by Juliet Marillier, and I've already spoken about this book and this series a lot, so I'll try to be brief. But if you have not already heard me go on and on about the Blackthorn and Grimm trilogy, this is the second book in that trilogy. It's a historical fantasy series that takes place in an ancient Ireland setting, so there are loads of supernatural elements. There are fae characters who feature quite prominently, and we are following Grimm and Blackthorn as they learn to trust one another and as they learn to navigate a world after experiencing really horrific trauma. This is not an easy read, I would say. This series broke my heart, but then cradled all of the pieces back together. It was such a beautiful, beautiful story. There is romance and love that features throughout the trilogy, but this is first and foremost historical fantasy. It's very much a slow burn romance, and it's a story about the companionship and trust that one person can have with another person, and it doesn't have to be romantic. I really enjoyed the way that Marillier depicted love and the way that she balances both really immersive world building with really rich, deep character development. This was a beautiful story that I wish I could read for the first time again. So this is the only 5-star book that I have to talk about today, but it is one of the best books that I have read so far this year. A much lighter book that I also picked up in May is A Fragile Enchantment by Allison Saft. And this is a young adult historical fantasy romance because it takes place in a fictional Regency-esque setting, which is a subgenre I love because I love Regency romances. And because it is young adult, I found Kit and Neve's relationship to be really sweet and really endearing. It is a standalone, so while I love a good standalone fantasy, I did find that the ending to this book was a little bit rushed, which is what dropped it from a 5-star read to a 4-star read for me. But I really appreciated the way that Saft mirrored English and Irish colonizer and colonized relations with the fictional countries that she created in A Fragile Enchantment. And that gave me something to sink my teeth into and make little notes throughout. And having that more complex, deep world building doesn't always exist with standalone fantasies. So I really enjoyed the way that Saft mirrored something from our real world that helped build up her story with such short page space. It's only 300 pages, 350 pages. This is the first book that I've read by Saft, but it's absolutely not going to be my last. I'm excited to pick up something else by her before the end of this year. The penultimate best book of Q2 that I'm going to talk about today is 16 Ways to Defend a Walled City by K.J. Parker. And this is a humorous historical fantasy. I've read a few novellas by Parker, so I knew that I enjoyed their writing because humorous fantasy isn't always something that clicks with me, but I really enjoy the way that Parker writes it. His writing reminds me a little bit of Scott Lynch, or of course like the father of humorous fantasy, Terry Pratchett. And I didn't quite know what to expect with this book, which is the first book in the Siege trilogy, and I ended up loving it so much more than I ever anticipated. We are following a little bit of a reluctant protagonist. He very much does not want to be leading the defense while the city is being sieged, but he finds himself in the right/wrong time at the right/wrong place. And suddenly he is leading the defense. He is leading this municipal effort. And I really enjoyed the main character because they're a little bit of an unlikable character. They do things that you do not agree with. And I love a complex gray character. And I'm choosing my words very carefully because the conclusion to 16 Ways was so impactful. It packed such a punch that I'm pretty sure I just closed the book and sat there in silence whilst I tried to process and comprehend what I had just read. My dilemma at the moment is the fact that I own the third book in the Siege trilogy, but I don't own the second. So I gotta get my hands on the second because I really want to know where Parker is gonna take this series next. I really enjoyed it. Again, so much more than I expected. And I am so happy that I picked this up last month. Oh, Minnie might join us. Hi. Yeah. Would you like to come here? You don't like being on camera. What? Okay, yeah, bye. And finally, the last book that I'm going to talk about today is actually the last book that I read in June, and that is The Spellshop by Sarah Beth Durst. And this is a really cozy, really comforting fantasy romance with really low stakes, and I loved this book. I did film a reading vlog for it, so I'll try not to spoil too many of my thoughts, but I enjoyed the world that Durst created. It felt very similar to Rebecca Thorns' Can't Spell Treason Without T, and Thorn is blurbed on the cover here, so it makes sense. But I really enjoyed that on this island that Keela, our main character, returns to, there are so many supernatural creatures. There are winged cats and everyone is existing for the most part in harmony. And while this is touted and I described it as a romantic fantasy, I found the more prominent message within this book was one of friendship and belonging, because Keela is trying to make a home for herself or reclaim a home for herself. And I found it to be a really beautiful novel. It's the first book that I've read by Durst. This is the first in a series, but I would argue that you can read this as a standalone. The conclusion wraps everything up quite nicely. That said, there is a sequel that's coming out later this month or in August that I will be picking up because I enjoyed this world and these characters so much. So those were the best books that I read throughout the second quarter of this year. If you've read any of the books I've spoken about today, please let me know down in a comment below because I'd love to hear your thoughts. Or let me know what the best book you read throughout the second quarter of this year was, because I'd love to chat with you. For now, this is going to be it for me. Thank you very much for watching this video, and I will be back soon with a new one. Bye for now.